My name is Mary Berg. I'm 70 years old, and today's date is March 20th, 2024.
Great. And did you receive the release form? And do you agree with it? Is it okay?
Yes, I did, and yes, I do.
Oh, great. So why don't you start out just by just telling a little bit about, where you grew up, what your life was, your early life was like, just in a shorthand kind of way,
Hmm. Okay.
or make it
I grew
long.
up, yeah. I was born and raised in Sacramento, California, uh, and because of family life, left home when I was 15 and hitchhiked around, ended up in the state of Washington, and found somebody there that I said, take me as far as you're going. And they came to Chicago. And I was on the corner of Lincoln and Racine. I believe that's the corner I was on. Um, and there was a gentleman, uh, Anderson. I don't
Gary,
remember his
Gary,
Gary Anderson, who was selling Rising Up Angry papers on the corner. And I was looking for a place to stay. And it just so happened that that night, and this was in 1971, that there was a people's dance being held at the Wobbly Hall, which was the Veterans Hall on Lincoln Avenue that night. And he told me to show up, and he was sure I would find somebody there that would have a place for me to stay. And he was correct. I ended up meeting my husband, Tim, at that dance, and just knew immediately that him and I were going to spend the rest of our lives together. And we ended up being together 51 years. He ended up dying in 2022.
Wow.
But we were together that whole time.
Wow.
And
And describe the People's Dance.
oh my
What it was
gosh.
to you.
Yeah. It was pretty overwhelming. It was a small hall that was very packed with a lot of people. And I actually ended up going home with a girl, Michelle Penzior, who was living with her mom and sister, and she took me home with her. And then I ended up being invited to move in with the commune that Tim was living in with 6 other people, and moved in with them, and Tim and I hooked up and we're together ever since. But the dance was awesome. I don't remember what the benefit was. I don't remember what the purpose of it was. All I know is that I was very thankful that it was happening, and I was able to find not only a place to stay, but a community of people that were active in making sure that there was justice for all people, not just the privileged few.
And so that was your first run-in with Rising Up Angry. And were you involved after that in Rising Up Angry? And if so, in
Well,
what ways?
yeah. So I went to the office, and I believe the main office was on Lincoln Avenue as well, if I remember correctly. And I walked up a flight of stairs, and there was a desk in this room, and behind the desk was a life-size picture of Huey P. Newton. And I went, oh shit. I said, oh my God, these people are communists. They're going to tie me up and lock me in a back room somewhere. But I got to talking to people, and just understanding that, I found out there was a free clinic and there was free legal programs for people that couldn't afford it. Working with the Black Panthers to make sure that kids were being fed, and working very closely with the Black Panthers. And I actually ended up selling Rising Up Angry in uptown, kitty corner from where the Black Panthers were selling their paper. But it was real evident that this was a dedicated group of people that really wanted to make sure that there was justice being done in the world. One of the things that actually affected me, I don't know if it affected me the most, but it definitely affected me a great deal, was the Gutman brothers tribunal that happened. There were 3 Gutman brothers that owned an amazing amount of property in Uptown. And there were people dying because the elevators weren't working. And so children and people were being beheaded because they would look down into the shaft and an elevator would come down on them. And people burning to death because the back doors were barbed wired and nailed shut. And the city of Chicago wasn't doing anything about that. And so I was part of a group of people that went around collecting signatures saying that we wanted these Gutman brothers to be indicted for what they were doing to people living in their buildings. And I don't remember how many signatures we got, but I know that it was well over 5,000 signatures. And they were brought to justice. There was a trial and they were brought to justice. Had we not done that, I don't know if they would have ever had to, if they would have ever been held responsible.
And was that part of the legal program, or was that?
Yeah, that was part of the legal program.
And were you like formally involved in the legal program, or you just helped out on that? Or
no, I just helped out on that. I just liked I didn't really have any skills that I felt I could bring. So I mean, I wasn't a lawyer, I wasn't a nurse, I wasn't, there were a lot of things that we needed skilled people for, and I wasn't one of those skilled people, but I could be a body to help be a voice. And so that's what I tried to be, as a voice.
And as you look back all these years, are there, other than, the First People's Dance and the Gutman campaign, any other experiences or learning experiences or anything that have stuck with you over the years?
Oh, just the not being aware of just how much injustice there is in this country. And I say is because it's still happening. It hasn't changed much. But growing up in a small farm town in California, there were no people of color that I grew up with. And it wasn't until I came to Chicago, actually, that I started meeting people of color. And for me, they were no different. I mean, they just had a different color skin than I did. It didn't mean that they were any less or any more than I was. But I didn't grow up with all that, because you have to be taught how to be prejudiced. It's not something that you're born with. You have to be taught. And it's handed down from generation to generation, generations teaching their children how to be prejudiced, and just becoming real aware of what white privilege is, and being willing to talk about that and accept that and take responsibility for that, because I think it is a responsibility. I was born white, so I have a lot of privilege that a lot of people of color do not have. And even though I'm a woman, I don't have all the privilege that white men do. But that's an ongoing thing. And I think that the struggle that was happening in the 60s and 70s is still happening. I think I've become quieter because I'm not on the streets protesting, which in some ways saddens me, because I think with the amount of stuff that's happening in this country now, we should be out there every weekend. just protesting the kind of shit that's happening in this country.
So, speaking of what's happening now, like when you left Rising Up Angry, or since Rising Up Angry, what's happened? You know, you were with Tim, but what about, did you have a family? You know, what path did your life take?
We do. We have three grown children. Our oldest son is 52, and we have 8 grandchildren and a great grandchild due in July. Um, and our kids are very socially aware. And I think that that was really important for us, for them to know that they are indeed privileged, and you know, that social justice is something that we're all called to be a part of, and
And so,
equality.
and so, just say a little bit about where you're living now and what.
I actually got rid of everything in the 3-bedroom house and had the kids and grandkids come over and take what they wanted after Tim died, and went on a 6-week road trip and came back from that road trip and bought an RV and decided that that's the life I wanted. I wanted to be able to go where I wanted, when I wanted to go, and stay for however long I want to stay. So my RV's name is Maxine. And I have a car, which her name is Toadster because she's a toad. And we just, right now we're in Texas. And then we're going to go up to New Mexico and then back to Illinois for a little bit, and then down to North Carolina and Georgia, and not sure where I'm going to go from there, but that's the plan for right now.
Wow. And have any of the other than Tim, have any of the relationships that you made in Rising Up Angry, you know, lasted over time?
They have, not so much because we've been in contact with each other a lot. But when Tim died, there was a group of Rising Up Angry members that came to his funeral, and it was just so wonderful to, because we got very involved in church, and we're, youth group leaders and on vestry and altar guild, and just, really just got full blown involved in a church. And a church that we were involved in and Wilmette was working for justice, and so that was very important for us to deal with racism and justice. And the church that we were involved in was very active in that. But to have a group of old friends show up, and to be there with new acquaintance that we had and people we've known for years, and it was a wonderful mixture of people coming together and saying, we don't have to see each other every day, we don't even have to talk every day, but we were a part of each other's lives, and a very important part of each other's lives, and we will continue to be important to each other.
And if you had one thing that you wanted to share, or it could be more than one, but something that you wanted to share with the younger generation that's working for social justice now and wants to change the world the way we did, what advice or caution or urging would you give them?
Let your voice be heard. Stand up and be heard. That's the greatest advice that I can give, is don't be quiet. I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. that said something about being quiet is our enemy. I don't remember what the quote is, and I'm sorry I don't remember that quote, but it was, being quiet does more damage. Not doing anything does more damage than speaking up. And make a difference. We need to change the way that things are run in this country. So stand up and be heard. You have an opportunity to make things different. And just know you have a group of people behind you that are willing to stand behind you to make that happen.
Great. Before we close, any final thoughts, anything else you'd like to say?
Just very grateful for the years that we were involved in working together to make a difference. And I think we did. And I think, every time we move forward, except lately, it feels like a lot of work that we did to move forward. We're now moving backwards on. But I think that, we do continue to move forward as an individual, as a people. And, I will continue to do my best to be responsible and to use my white privilege as a tool to help others.
Great. Well, thank you so much.